Hey guys, welcome back to Sports with Mono and Mono. It's July 25th, 2020, almost through the first month of the summer. So, as you'll notice, I am solo this week as my partner Steve is on assignment, and I guess his assignment is getting sunburned down at the Jersey Shore. So, I hope he's having a good time. He's down there with his son and so forth. But I wanted to make sure we at least had a show up here. There's still a few things we got to talk about and so forth. And Steve sends his regards, and on we go. And our first segment, of course, is sponsored by Coriano Trucking of Haverstraw, New York, who has been a loyal supporter of the show since day one, and we thank them immensely. So listen, it's baseball season started last night. Actually, it started Thursday night, the Yankees and the Nationals. One of my takeaways from it, first of all, from a baseball perspective, the starting pitching was amazing, right? We got to see Gerrit Cole and Max Scherzer, going head to head, and those are two of the best pitchers in baseball, obviously, not just because they make the most money, but they're awesome. And I did get a chance to see Jacob deGrom pitched a 1-0 shutout for the Mets in their first game, in which Cespedes hit a home run for the only run for the Mets, which was I wouldn't get used to this because I don't see this guy staying on that field for too long, but he did perform. But it was great to see that kind of starting pitching, albeit it's a 60-game season. I think you guys are pretty clear on what my feelings are on a 60-game season. It's nothing really more than a tournament and so forth. But, hey, they're playing baseball. No fans in the stands, cardboard cutouts, crazy, right? And it goes back to the craziness we've been talking about since, for the past 4 months, this whole coronavirus and so forth. I really didn't see 4 months ago that would be watching baseball games with cardboard cutouts in the stands, but that's exactly what's going on right now. So, unfortunately, it's the sign of the times, but it was good to see regular baseball. It's supposed to mean something, 60-game season. Again, nothing but a 60-game tournament. One of our fans, Jim Walsh, actually made a statement, sent us an email that if, somebody, and it's not out of the realm of possibility that somebody, in the first 60 games of a season gets off to a torrid pace and can hit 400. We've seen it before, obviously. No one's hit 400 since Ted Williams, because it's virtually impossible. But in a 60-game season, yes. And Jim was asking, is there going to be an asterisk? Absolutely. 60 games hitting 400 does not qualify as a Ted Williams hitting 400 back in 1941. Not even close. And the same thing we talked about with the pitching as well. Cy Young could have 6 wins, maybe 7 wins tops, right? In a 60-game season. So, yeah, everything's going to have an asterisk in it from a records perspective. And I still can't believe that they actually made a change to put a runner on in extra innings at second base. And my initial thought was, you got to be kidding. I mean, you're changing the game that much. I mean, as if not having fans wasn't enough. We got to change the rules now, especially in extra innings. You know how hard it is to get to second base in the major league level? I mean, just figure if Mariano Rivera was there, right? Guys would kill to have a runner free pass to second base. And it's kind of crazy, but they're doing it to try to speed things up. I guess, I don't know what speeding a game up has to do with being cautious if there's no stands and no fans in the stands already, if you've taken those measures. But, like I said, baseball's starting. And I'm looking forward to it, I guess, because it's baseball and it actually means something. So, looking forward to it. Another big story in Major League Baseball was Mookie Betts. Got an incredibly large contract, a 12-year, $300+ million. And we could see what's happened. I mean, we know that Machado got it, and Bryce Harper, and obviously Mike Trout's the only $400 million man, and he's definitely deserve it. I mean, if you're going to pay these guys, Trout, we've always said, Steve and I, it's always been he deserves it. He's the best player in baseball. This guy Betts is great. He's got a lot of potential. Still relatively young, 27 years old, but making a ton of money. So, what does that make you think when you're talking about baseball and contracts coming up? And we have this big slugger in New York. I'm sure you've all heard of him, Aaron Judge. I think his contract is probably coming up, and is he going to be a $400 million man? Yeah, if Mookie Betts and these guys are getting that kind of money, sure, that's what's going on. The same thing has happened in the NFL. We're getting $300-400 million players, right? The Patrick Mahomes contract, Dak Prescott will get somewhere in that neighborhood, and when the Rodgers and all these other guys have to renegotiate their contracts, the numbers are just going to be staggering. And as if the economic impact hasn't already taken its toll in the sports world, right? I don't know who's going to pay for it. Somehow it's going to get passed off to the fans, and we're going to be paying $10 a game, hypothetically, whatever, to watch the Yankees. They're already burying the cost in cable TV and so forth, and but I just don't see where this money's coming back to pay these guys. And like I said, Mookie Betts, yeah, he's one of the best upcoming players in the league. Judge is going to be up there. I think the only $300 million, I think it's Bryce Harper, Machado, Giancarlo Stanton, Mike Trout, and now Mookie Betts. Garrett Cole's making a ton of money. I'm talking non-pitchers. So baseball's underway, right? And, if, we move on to a couple other sports that are just about to get ready to go. Hockey, that I'm looking forward to. That I kind of find it to be at least a little. They played a lot of this, most of the season already. So this is, in fact, it's a tournament, right? It's the Stanley Cup playoffs in a different kind of format, but they did play, a lot of the season already. I think they fell like maybe 10, 15 games short. So, hockey is coming back. Hockey's always, Stanley Cup playoffs and playoff hockey is always awesome. So I'm looking forward to that. I think, like I said, they played most of the season, so a lot of the trophies, the Hart Trophy for the MVP. And I got to give a shout out to Steve because he brought this guy to my attention. I mean, I know he was Rookie of the Year for the Blackhawks in 2016, but Artemi Panarin for the Rangers finished 95 points. Didn't lead the league, but that's an unbelievable first year in New York, and congratulations to him for being a finalist for the Hart Trophy. Don't know if he's going to win it, but it's good to have that kind of a talent, back in New York hockey. I guess I don't think we've had that in New York, maybe since Tavares. Tavares was an unbelievable player for the Islanders and so forth, but it was his dream to play for the Maple Leafs, so he left. And like Steve and I have talked about, the Rangers, they're doing everything right. I love this David Quinn. I love everything that he's doing. And with a Panarin and these kind of guys, and they got a good foundation, and anything can happen. Like I said, I think it's a 24-game East Coast, West Coast playing the hockey for the playoffs and so forth. But I'm kind of looking forward to it because there's a lot of great young talent, and when you look at hockey, you can think of right now like Sidney Crosby. Remember when he was coming up as an 18-year-old, and now he's a seasoned veteran and so forth. So there's a lot of young talent in the NHL, and that season's about to get underway. A couple things. If we move on to the NBA, because we Steve and I did talk about this last week as far as the NBA going into this bubble. I just don't get it that it's a hell of a lot more safer in a secluded area in Walt Disney World. To me, basketball is face to face and that kind of thing. Yeah, I guess they're not going to play with fans either. But they're kind of taking this like they're isolated and nothing can happen to these guys. But of course, in each sport, everybody's getting tested and so forth. So you have certain guys are testing positive. They got to get quarantined and so forth. Russell Westbrook finally showed up, even though I don't know that anybody ever said that he had it, but he decided he didn't want to sit in the bubble too early. But he's back now. And Zion is back, left for personal reasons. So I guess you can come and go out of this bubble, but I just don't see any reason why it's safer. And to be quite honest with you, they're gonna give the NBA awards. They didn't play a lot of games this season, right? So they're going right into this playoffs, and again, to me, it's a tournament. That's all it is. It's a tournament, and they certainly want LeBron James and the Lakers in the finals, and you got Giannis and all these guys. So, the NBA took just as much of an impact, but everybody's getting paid. So I don't feel any sympathy for these guys, but I don't have as much excitement for the NBA coming back as I do for like baseball and hockey. I just don't. For some reason, I just can't get all that hyped up about it. There's just too much surrounding it. There's too many prima donnas. But there was one basketball news that I certainly wanted to bring up because Tom Thibodeau looks like he's going to be hired as the New York Knicks coach. Now, when I heard that his name was come up, and you want to talk about a basketball and X's and O's guys, this guy knows the game of basketball, right? So I don't dismiss the fact that the Knicks hired him, but I just don't. I can't see him tolerating some of these prima donnas that are playing for the New York Knicks. I just don't know that they can respect a guy that knows the game, right? This is just like Pat Riley. Some of these guys just wouldn't listen to Pat Riley, and I'm saying, why wouldn't you listen to Pat Riley? And it's going to be the same kind of thing with Tom Thibodeau. The guy knows the game, and these guys want to take days off, and they don't follow his blue book for X's and O's on the basketball court. So it was just like when Mike D'Antoni came, right? Mike D'Antoni's record as an NBA coach was phenomenal, right? And great coach. But these guys don't want to listen to him. And again, this is the New York Knicks. This has been a shambles of a program for the past 10, 15, 20 years. And, I love the fact that they brought a guy in, but it just doesn't mean that, he's going to turn them into instant winners. Because if they don't listen to him and they don't follow the way he believes that they could win, then they're not going to win. And it just seems like another time where you got, Dolan and so forth thinking they're making the right move, and it doesn't work out. And again, it's the Knicks, and it's basically the Knicks. What can you say? So listen, moving on to football, that's coming up, and this is sponsored by Lynch Motors of Manchester, Connecticut, who has been a loyal sponsor of us. Hopefully he's out on his boat up in Rhode Island this week. And Mike, thanks for supporting the show. Football, so that's coming back, right? A couple of notable points as far as the NFL goes, right? They finally got rid of preseason games. And, you could look at both sides of the coin here, right? I think everybody consensus would agree that 6 games was too many. Really, it was a month and a half of just useless football. And, but is 0, to Jim Walsh's point, is no preseason going to make, the first few weeks be real sloppy, and it's only a 16, 17 game season. So, the first 3 games could go either way and impact the playoff run down the road. That was a good point by Jim, because, when you think about training camp, it's always there's a feel-good story for each team, right? A guy comes out of nowhere, whether he was a free agent or a late draft pick, and he shows what he could do throughout training camp and throughout the preseason games, and he gets a chance to show his wares, and the feel-good story is he makes the team and becomes a bona fide NFL player. Some of that's not going to be possible this time around, right? The training camps are going to be a little shorter. These guys aren't going to have as much time to impress. So we talked about it when little league and high school football and high school sports weren't played this year. The impact it had on some of these young kids that were hoping to show their talents to the college scouts for their last senior year, and it's very similar to this. So let's see how that pans out. But because you always want to have somebody that impresses and somebody that flew under the radar, right? There was a good ESPN special, and I hope you could see it. It's a half hour long, and it was on John Tuggle, who was the last player, right? There's always the last player in the draft pick in the draft gets. I think they called it. I can't even think of the name, but the last player. And John Tuggle ended up having cancer, and he was just a stand-up guy. That's the kind of guy that may not find its way to an NFL roster this year because of the short training camps and so forth. So, that's the downside. But I would have been okay with one, maybe two preseason games just to kind of shake the rust off and get the start of the NFL season back on the right foot. But that's not how it's going to be. So we're going to go right into the season, and like I said, you don't know. There's a lot of new talent out there and so forth, and some of the rookies you'll be looking closely at guys like Baker Mayfield and so forth as a make or break year. It's a big second year for Daniel Jones, who impressed in his first year, right? But it's Sam Darnold, and again, this is New York stuff. Some guys are on his bandwagon, some guys aren't. I was one of the guys that said I thought he was picked too high, but a lot of people are saying it's because of Adam Gase, it's because of Sam Darnold, whatever. But these are make or break years for these guys. We know they're not going to be in the Patrick Mahomes type of Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady level of play, but guys like Baker Mayfield, they spent a lot of money to put a lot of talent around him, and he needs to step up and show whether or not he can get it done in this league. So, but I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, still uncertain about how the college football is going to play out. Looks like a lot of conferences are either canceling games or certainly canceling out-of-conference games. But, Notre Dame may play in the ACC and so forth. So, they're trying to get things done. But when you look at an empty baseball stadium with cardboard cutouts, you say, I don't know how we could possibly schedule and put these collegiate kids at risk. I just don't know how you could do it. But, probably in the next week or so, we're going to know what the future of college football is going to be, and I still don't know what it is for high school. And we love high school football in New Jersey. A lot of prominent teams, the St. Joe's, the Don Bosco's, the Bergen Catholic, St. Peter's. I mean, these are elite teams. And right now, it looks like at the very best, we may get a 6-game schedule, which is kind of, what we're talking about with the professional sports. It's not a full season, then how does it count as a full season, But listen, I would hope that some sort of an arrangement can, come to agreement with how to play these games, and whether it's, high school football without fans, that's more impactful from my perspective than it is for a professional athlete, right? High school, these are kids, big kids, but they're kids. So sports is going to come back in some shape or form, and football is right around the corner. I guess we're a month away from opening day. Looking forward to it. But like I said, no fans at the Jet games, no fans at the Giant games, and it's probably going to be that way all over the country. Before I leave the NFL, I wanted to say I saw an interview with Ron Rivera. Ron Rivera is now the head coach of the Washington football team, right? I can't say the Redskins anymore, but I can say the football team. And I must say I couldn't be more impressed with him. He was really articulate. He was really focused, and basically his point was he was brought in not only to be the head football coach, but also to change the culture, right? And you got a lot going on with the Washington Redskins, and Jeff Bolliger from Connecticut I haven't spoken to yet. I don't know how he feels about, his Redskins being called Washington Football Team right now. It's temporary till they come up with a name. But the front office stuff and everything, but it was a real mess. And, it's very unusual to bring a coach in, right, to change the culture of an entire organization. Yeah, it makes you wonder, what's Dan Snyder doing? What is his role besides funding all this, right? And, but I couldn't have been more impressed with Ron Rivera and the way he sees what his role is, not only as the football coach, but the face of the Washington franchise. And I remember him as a player. I know Steve remembers him as a player. He was an outstanding football player and did a great job coaching in Carolina. But they had a big shake-up there, right? He goes and Newton goes and so forth. But I think the Washington Redskins picked the right guy. I really have become more and more impressed with Ron Rivera over the course of time. And, usually, from being a sports guy, we can tell when guys are just answering the question in a textbook manner, right? This guy was answering the question, and it was Jeremy Schaap who asked very tough questions. But it seemed like he came across with just, class and dignity. And again, I think this is the right move for the Washington Redskins. And I as much as I don't really like the Washington Redskins, I like the players who played for them. But, as a Giant fan, you can't like the Redskins. This goes back to when I was a little kid. I went to a Redskins-Giants game up in Yale Bowl in Connecticut. And, back then it was different. After the game, we went and waited by the bus and had a chance to pat Sonny Jurgensen on the shoulder, a Hall of Famer, the Washington Redskins. So, I love the lore. I've always worshipped the job Joe Gibbs did and so forth. But I like this Ron Rivera. I think it's a good thing, and I'm looking forward to him turning that franchise around. Like I said, Chase Young, they're going to sign their number 1 draft pick, so they got some good things. But from a New York perspective, it's going to be the year of the quarterbacks, and they're going to be up and down in Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold, every pass, every move they make. And but I think both of them have the composure to deal with the criticism. Let's just see how they perform on the field. But I'm excited to look because I really like Saquon Barkley. I love having him here. I don't think Frank Gore is going to make that kind of an impact with the Jets. He's been around too long. But to have a guy like Barkley in the backfield, I know the Giants have a lot of holes, but we like watching talent, and there's some young talent there, and they got the potential to be really excellent NFL football players. Listen, real quick, I just want to backpedal to hockey because I wonder if everybody else is just as confused as I am with the Seattle Kraken, the name. When I first heard it, didn't know what it meant. Didn't know what it was. Didn't know anything about it. Not sure why they chose the name, but they did. So feel free to send us an email at sportswithmonoandmono@gmail.com and let us know what you think of the Seattle Kraken, the newest NHL franchise, and the name. I was even looking at the logo, and it took me 10 minutes to figure out what was I looking at. So, I think you got to be from the West Coast to even appreciate it, but I thought it was a funny name. Thought it was a silly name, but it is the name. And send us an email. Let us know what you think. And Steve and I we'd be throwing one-liners back and forth right now, but unfortunately he's not here with us, so we'll pass on that. But I thought it was worth bringing up because it was a name I didn't get. It took me a couple minutes to look it up. So listen, before we close out on the effects of empty stadiums on the sports, right? This is the second week of racing up in Saratoga, and it's something special. We've talked about it before. but it's unusual again to watch Saratoga. It's been beautiful weather, and that's why you go up to Saratoga for the pomp and circumstance and the magnificent racing and the quality jockeys that they have. And but just watching it, and it's a horse race. There were no stands, no fans in the stands, even at Saratoga. So again, the economic impact is just it's just a domino effect. It's happened all over the place. But hopefully, we can get past this, and at some point, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen at Saratoga. It's only a 6-week meet up there, and but it's 6 special weeks up there, and it was just unusual to see the racing in front of an empty grandstand in Saratoga, New York. It's amazing to see. But listen, I told you I'm going to keep this short because Steve will be back with us next week, of course. Looking forward to his return. Couple of things before we go. Our last sponsor is De Filippi's Bakery from Monticello, New York, and they've been with us for a while. And Carmela's been doing a lot of good things to help the community during this time and so forth. And that's the kind of thing you need to get through a pandemic like this, and that's happening. So if you're ever up in upstate New York, it's really a great place to stop in and get your pastries and so forth. There was one guy I mentioned, and again, obviously, as you know, we've touched on NASCAR here and there. We know what's going on. We know who the players are. But there was one story. It's a very sad story. But him, I remembered. I remember Alex Zanardi. He was a Formula One, and he was a 2-time kart champion, race car driver. And unfortunately, he was in an accident about 20 years ago. Had both legs amputated. So, as if that wasn't tragic enough, and he overcame that, and the mental aspect of overcoming something like that, and became a, world-class Paralympian. And he had an accident on his hand bike and so forth, and he may not recover. I mean, it was an accident, and like I said, he's had health problems ever since the accident 20 years ago. But how ironic that he gets in another accident in this, and he's only 53. I actually thought he was a little bit older, but we send our best to him, because he's kind of a Gretzky-like. When you talk about Formula One racing, he was top of his game back then, and again, that was about 20, 30 years ago, and he's in pretty bad shape. So. But like I said, we know we have some race fans out there, and I know you know who Alex Zanardi is, and wish him the best, because athletes like that, he never did really anything, to diminish his reputation as a quality guy. It was sad to hear, but we wish him a recovery. Just don't know if it's going to happen. And then we always sign off with our notable passings, right? There was a couple. And I know NFL fans would know who Carlton Hasselrig is. 54, and he was a Pittsburgh Steeler, right? But before he became a Pittsburgh Steeler, and he didn't play college football at all. He's actually a 6-time NCAA NCAA wrestling champion, meaning he wrestled in I think it was Division II or Division III. Won 3 national championships, and then there was some guidelines or some flaw in the rules, and he actually went to a Division I and won 3 more. So he was a 6-time national championship wrestler and a 4-time Pro Bowler for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So he passed away at a relatively young age, unexpectedly. So, like I said, big guy, good player, no college football, and made it to the Pro Bowl. That's a notable passing. Also from the world of football, John Blake. Now, John Blake was the first black football head coach at Oklahoma, actually the first black head coach in any sport at University of Oklahoma. And, he died at 59. Again, unexpectedly. He used to coach for Barry Switzer and also won 2 Super Bowl rings with the Dallas Cowboys as their line coach. So John Blake was 59, known throughout, both college and NFL as a quality guy. 59 years old, pretty young. Only had a 3-year stretch. Not sure how he lasted 3 years at Oklahoma. I think with a career record of 12-22. So, obviously that's not acceptable at University of Oklahoma, but he was a notable passing. And finally, we sometimes wander off into the world of entertainment. Peter Green, one of the original founders of Fleetwood Mac, died age 73. And one thing I saw, which, to put into perspective, a lot of people think today's Fleetwood Mac with Stevie Nicks and so forth, but he was a fantastic blues guitar player back then. Even B.B. King say he was one of the best blues guitar players he's ever known. Coming from B.B. King, that's quite a compliment. So Peter Green, 73, from the world of entertainment. So listen, thanks for joining us, and again, thanks for listening to me ramble. Steve will be back with us next week, and we'll get back into the swing of things. We'll see a lot of things unfold in the next week or so in the world of sports, and look forward to talking to you guys about it. Send us an email at sportswithmanoandmano@gmail.com, and we'll certainly bring it up. But thanks for joining us, and you guys enjoy your weekend. Thanks.